Hello, and welcome back to Minotaur Hotel. We're still here with Wolfu-chan. Uh, why did I say it that way? Who knows? He's having a time. He's having a wonderful time, right? Well, okay. When he was younger, he lived close to a human settlement. He remembers that they had beasts which freely moved amongst them. Lowing animals with horns and hooves, a fowl fatter and more succulent than their indulgence, than any he could catch, and squealing pink things which laid the ferocious temptation of sharp tusks and their wild cousins. Humans always were much looser with their social hierarchy than any species, by all accounts. They will adopt nearly anything so long as the creature in question has something to offer them in return. He knows of the arrangement in abstract terms. The human provides food and shelter to the beast in exchange for their loyalty and labor. He can work with that. Still, it will be easier said than done. While there was a brief time in ages past that a wolf and human might consider working together on a mad survival impulse, that window closes long before he was born. Likewise, he had lived in isolation for so long that he had no bearings, no frame of reference that he may use to orient himself towards the nearest village. If he is to find one, he must sniff it out. He leaves his den one warm spring day, belly full and spirits high. So deep in the wild, smoke is easy to notice once he picks up the scent and sees the lingering plume. He finds only false positives at first, a few otherwise abandoned campsites with no human to speak of, or old cigarette butts discarded by some errant human hunter. However, the weather had been clear, and the snow melt had made the muddy ground perfect for preserving footprints. He stalks off at a middling pace, not close enough to alter any potential humans to his presence, but not far enough to lose their trails. By the time he happens upon a settlement, it has been many days since he first set out. Flanked on one side by mountains and another by shoreline, the village is in an evident state of decay. Rusty buildings house aging people, slowly warping and deteriorating like the wood of their homes. Forced by isolation to live off the land, they are the closest to the wolf's life cycle. Amongst them, he will seek a kinder spirit. There cannot be more than 100 people in the entire town. Its construction bespeaks a long history of subsistence living. Built around a single central street, the winds and slopes winds and slopes awkwardly with the uneven landscape, neighborhoods and small erratically laid out, with so much space between each house that they can hardly be said to exist at all. He will watch them from afar to scout the herd for visible targets. As with other groups he has hunted, the very old and the very young will be the most valuable to his natural weapons. Vulnerable was probably that word. An old man always finds use for a thirsty... Oh, no, valuable. Okay. Maybe it was valuable, not vulnerable. I don't know. Am I going to go back and check? No. Could always use a trusty guard dog, whether for something as mundane as fetching his slippers, or as dramatic as keeping thieves out during the night. In a town like this, so far from civilization, it is easy to imagine someone blind or senile adopting him by mistake. Likewise, a young child might not know any better than to approach a wild wolf, thinking to pet him. He would naturally have to contend with the suspicion of the child's parents. but so long as he remains suitably docile, he might be able to win them over given time. Before long, he's attuned himself to a podunk Hamlet's a rhythm of life. In the morning, there's a clamor of heavy-booted hunters and fishermen stomping off into the tundra in search of food. Later in the day, the suitable crunch of disturbed snow as home bodies tend to their steads and their less abled relatives. And, as the sky darkens, the unintelligible nighttime jabber of human tongues wagging, scratching their social itches before retreating back to their homes. Oh, look at this guy. His first contact with a human, as a result, lacks any flair for theatrics. It is a simple moment of direct eye contact on one of his nightly rambles about the tiny township, which shunts him into the spotlight. The human, mundane as it sounds, is simply taking out their trash when they chance upon another in the evening dusk. Without so much as an exchange of fear-short stouts for warning growls, the two hunters acknowledge one another and back slowly away to resume their respective lives. The wolf takes the human's gift to him, the bag of refuse that was cast away, and drags it some distance away before tearing it open to sate himself on scraps. He hasn't the freshness or the flavor of the meat he is used to, but it is still an easier meal than he has come by in a long time. He is thankful for it. Emboldened by what he perceives to be a positive response, he marks the spot in his memory, so he may begin his courtship with humanity. Though he cannot understand their words, he is upon their lips within a day. The crystallization of weeks of vague paranoia and a present and palpable psychosis. He has ceased to be known unknown, a silhouette stalking the shadowy corners of their perception, and as such, they cannot ignore him any longer. The stage is set for history to repeat, and none can be quite sure of the outcome. Ancient memories were dredged to the surface, wearing for supremacy. His dream of easy meals and comfortable cohabitation against the primal fear which has, for the most part, separated their species since the Neolithic age. Tonight, humanity joins the hunt. The wolf awakens before dawn. He bids farewell to the fading starlight, his jaws open, losing a half-audible yawn as he rouses himself from his makeshift shelter, a rocky overhang in which he'd waited out the evening rain. His brief period of careful observation has told him that the humans will leave their own dens soon after the sun comes up, to make use of every hour of daylight they can. Thankfully, he is not bound by such lame senses. He would have perished long ago, were he so poor-eyed and deaf-eared, and given the as man. Still, man has other virtues. Chief among them are avarice, which bends nature to better suit his addled body. Addled. Okay. As such, an appeal to that greed will be the wolf's chosen diplomatic tool in the pursuit of this alliance of convention. He has, in recognition of the human's gift, a thought to reciprocate by sharing some of his most recent kills. a lone young buck that met its own fate between his jaws after being driven from the herd. After tearing a After tearing a hunch from the carcass to arm his snarl, he deposits the meat at the edge of the acquaintance's territory. He will wait a respectful distance away, both to gauge the gift's reception and to preserve other predators from fouling his offering. If all goes well, they may make further exchanges of this sort in the future. It will take time before they are familiar enough to fully accept one another, but he hopes to persist upon until he has earned his keep, until he is allowed to add his scent mark to their own without fear of bloody reprisal. Arcane as the ways of men might be to the lupine mind, he cannot mistake the human silhouette looking down where he stands from the second floor of his cave. He marvels at the frailty of his would-be master, bare and undisguised. He sees it back away, raising a forlorn limb towards his snub muzzle, and hearing it begin shuffling around behind the thin wall as the change in angle obscures his line of sight. The nature of its bark are foreign to him, but he can sense hushed excitement in his tone. His breast swells at the prospect that his quest for companionship may end with the same lack of fanfare with which it began. Then, of course, all hell breaks loose. His ears twitch. He detects similar motion in the other nearby houses as dawn continues to break. In the morning twilight, the entire town seems to rouse itself in kind from the wolf's epicenter. That's what that word is. Single-minded as a bike of bees defending their hive. Is it called a bike? What? The morning's rush has started early. The old wolf bolts at the sudden shift in routine, a pause speeding a chaotic rhythm toward the tree line. Later in the night, he will return to investigate what remains of his gesture of goodwill. For now, instinct dictates that he must flee. As might be expected of an interaction between predators, the flight of one investigates, the other to chase. In hardly any time at all, the town has gathered a small force of able-bodied men to hunt the animal down and neither drive him off or destroy him. It is for their own protection, they tell themselves. Conflicts between man and wolf has seen countless iterations over the millennia, though they have come a long way since the Neolithic. Guns have replaced bows and spears. Days of careful subterfuge and tracking on foot have been outmoded by vehicles of all kind. It used to be that one could at least pretend that things were fair, that the gulf between man and animal wasn't like the space between heaven and earth. An old wolf can scarce compete with the innumerable advantages a man's ingenuity has won him over the generations. In the distance behind him, the wolf's keen ears pick up the thrumming of a source of sound, which is harrowing and unknowable to his simple mind. Though he cannot understand their function, he can hear each piston firing in rapid succession, and each tiny explosion propelling the mechanical monster onward in his pursuit. Above, the birds share his sentiments, halting their song and scattering upon the wind in a flurry of fearful motion. He comes to a brief stop at the edge of a clearing, turning around to face his attacker. Golden eyes dart around, seeking any angle of advantage in what remains of his time before the distance closes. The terrain favors neither party, too heavily forecasted for a car to be able to use in a direct approach, and moist enough to make Wolf's footprints stand out among the other rocky soil, should tracking prove necessary. The men dismount their vehicles at a distance of a few hundred meters, each one hoping to make the killing shot. The elders fan out to seek an optimal angle, looking for vantage points with which to secure their victory. One younger than the other boasts that he can make it from where he stands. The other scoff in response, but make no attempt to dissuade the glory-hungry youth from his attempt. He will neither succeed or else learn to tempt his tongue. Hunting for men, as well as wolves, is a realm in which the difference of a few millimeters can alter a killing blow and an inefficient waste of effort. Breath must be measured, wind and weather must be accounted for, coiling of the muscles must be balanced against sweat upon the hand. Eyes are made to squint, whether down a scope or at a dangerous beast or a muzzle at a deer's hindquarters. There is seldom margin for error. The young man pulls the bolt back, drawing a round out of the magazine and into the chamber. Bracing the butt of his rifle against his shoulder, he steadies his aim. It checks his sight picture and pulls the trigger, only to be interrupted, sabotaged by a purposeful flick of his gun's barrel and one of his seniors. The results speak for themselves. The old wolf lets out a piteous whine as the discharged bullet grazes his right side. A hair's breadth lodged itself into his chest cavity. The men behind him immediately erupt in a heated argument, shooting and coming to blows at such betrayal. But the old wolf moves on with the thunderous echo of gunfire in his ear. He sprints towards safety and at breakneck speed, moving with such haste that the light reaching his eyes becomes a grayer smear of nonsense information. He knows nothing of firearms, nor how he came to harm at such a distance, but he understands well enough to run as fast and as far as his legs will carry him. At times, fear overtakes all else. Like a flame, it melts away, purifies the unnecessary element of conscious thought, leaving only a pursuit of survival. Whatever limited cognition the wolf has, his whole body throbs with this sort of desperate, confused vigor, unable to process anything beyond the necessary motion of his limbs. He hardly registers the charge in the soil's texture beneath his paws, or the sudden harshness of the sun's rays upon his back. When he comes to a stop, there are no humans in sight, nor is there a trace of the sea of trees and ice to which he had become accustomed. Somehow he has found his way from his home in the frigid taiga to an expanse of arid shrubland. Still, necessity forbids him lingering to appraise his new surroundings. The hot sand scorches his paws, and the cruel sun threatens to set his dark-colored fur ablaze like so much kindling. He lops on, wheezing into the nearest source of shade, a convenient pile of rocks under which he hopes to wait out the heat of the day while he reorients himself. As the old wolf rests his makeshift shelter, his keen ears directs his attention across the desert sands towards another building. What modern day and more cosmopolitan metropolitan members of mankind would likely recognize as a hotel. Every so often, he'll hear another car roar by and race to his feet in preparation to flee, but none of the metal beasts discover his hiding place, nor do the humans riding them. Their purpose is as unintelligible to him as ever, despite the unity of their direction. Beyond the baleful gunfire bloom of the occasional backfiring engine, the air is thick with an unnatural stillness, as if the sun's heat had sterilized it long ago, and would not suffer it to be defiled again by the ragged rhythm of a breath. With nothing else to do, his eyes wander the wastelands, seeking a familiar sign. No mites, no fleas, no flies in this desert. No herds subsist of these mere shrubs and thorny bushes. There are no buzzards, no carrion birds to circle fresh corpses, showing the way to sustenance. No clouds, no water for his thirst. Only the men in their solitary shelter on the cliff seem capable of defying the elements. The wolf reaches the appropriate conclusion quickly enough. Something is gravely wrong. There is an evil here, an unsubtle hatred baked into every earth beneath his paw. He feels it whispers, seething hostility to every sense as it sucks the moisture from his body, his eyes staring as a gust of wind cakes them with dust, and his nostril mucosa are soon as cracked and dried as the riverbed below. He pants in a vain attempt to thermoregulate, but the Naples air brings no relief. Even in the shade, he burns. His eyes are glass. It hurts to breathe. Death before him, behind him, below him. He waits for dusk's sweet cool to make his move. The oppressive heat alone has kept him still. Though his mind races on, he has to leave. And yet, what other choice does he have to abide his time? Let the danger pass? For all he knows, the hunters could still be on his trail. More than once, he works up this sufficient courage to start poking around outside his hidey hole, only for a passing car to make him retreat. Only long silence and gentle starlight can steer him onward on his journey towards the parking lot. Okay, I shall end the part here, so I will see you around, everyone.